Hello, my friends, and welcome to another chair yoga video. I'm so glad that you've joined me. Right now, here in the Midwest, it's starting to get a lot colder, the air is a lot drier, and we may notice that in our joints. So we're going to address that today with our joint rotation series, moving through each joint slowly and within an acceptable range of motion for ourselves, and hopefully bring some movement into those stiff joints. Now, there's a really wonderful side effect to this as well, is that the nervous system loves smooth, even movements. So as we are making these movements with the body and getting the body hydrated, we're also affecting the mind, which is fantastic. This is a great practice for first thing in the morning. It's also a great practice for the last thing at night. And you can probably do all of these lying down. So that brings me to another thing that's kind of new and different about this video. The entire sequence will be done seated. We're going to go through the whole thing, probably take 15 minutes, maybe a little more. And then we're going to do the entire sequence again standing. Now, when we do something standing, of course, there's a balance component. We're standing on our 2 feet. The core is a little bit more involved. So you might decide after the seated part, I've had enough, time to get on with my day. Or you might decide after we do our centering, I don't want to do the seated, I just want to go straight to standing. You can do that as well. Third option would be to do them both. So it's kind of a choose your own adventure, and I invite you to do that. There'll be cards so you know where to fast forward to. In the meantime, we're all going to get started sitting on our chair. Please join me. We'll all get started on our chair just to take a moment to center, to come to the practice, and to check in with how the body feels. That's really important as we practice yoga, to notice the changes that we're making. Now I'm going to use this block to connect my feet to the floor. I'm going to slide back and allow the back of the chair to support me. I'll turn the palms up in my lap. And then the invitation is to soften or close your eyes. And notice how your body feels right now. Notice any tension that you may be holding on to. Tension that might just be intrinsic in those muscles that you're not aware of. And if you do become aware of that tension, see what you can do to release it. And then turn your attention to the breath. We'll slow it down and work to even it out. And after about 30 seconds of smooth and even breath, check in again with how you feel. Has that made a difference? We'll stack those palms at heart center. We'll take a moment right now to set an intention for this practice. Anything that's important to you, bring it to the front of your mind, the front of your heart. And then we'll release those hands back down to the lap. Let's take a circle with those shoulders. And we're going to move to the seated portion of this practice. Okay, so for the seated portion, we're going to move forward to the edge of our chair. We're going to move that block out of the way and connect our feet directly to the floor. Feet are on the floor, sitting bones are on the chair. You can let your hands rest in your lap if that feels okay. And we're just going to pick up the left foot, just pick up the left heel, and then let it drop down. Lift up the right heel, let it drop down. It's not a controlled drop, it's just a drop. And you may notice a little vibration right? That heel lands, it kind of bounces down. You may notice sensation up into the knee and the thigh. And if your hands are resting on your lap, you might notice movement there as well. Now you don't have to tie this to breath, but you could. Letting that slow, even inhale lift the heel. And then as you exhale, just drop it. Let's just do a few more. And once you've evened it out, I'm going to finish with my right heel. We're going to lift both heels. Again, noticing where you feel that sensation in the body. And then just pause, take a breath. We're going to move to the feet and ankles first, working one foot at a time. So I'm going to scooch back just a little bit so that I can pick up my foot and begin to turn it at the ankle. Very slow movements, and working within a range that's acceptable to me. Could be bigger, could be smaller, but whatever feels okay to me. So you make that decision. Be sure to go in the other direction. And you may notice cracking and popping, right? But eventually that all kind of smooths out. Maybe make the circles a little smaller and then see what's available. And if it doesn't feel good to keep that leg lifted, you can keep the toe on the ground and circle that way. So we have choices. Evening out those directions. And then we'll put the foot back on the ground. Pause for a moment. Notice how things feel. Notice how it might feel different than its neighbor. And then we'll move to the other side. Again, you can extend the leg forward. You could even put your hands behind your thigh if you wanted to do that. Or you could plant that toe on the ground and make circles with the ankle. So we're working with feet and ankles right now. And as you do that, you could even spread your toes wide if you wanted to. Noticing movement, sensation in the toes, the sole of the foot, the ankle. See if you can slow it down, smooth it out. And then we're going to put that foot back down next to its neighbor. Check in with sensations in both feet, both ankles. We're going to move up to the knee. Now, the knee is a hinge, so it's only going to go back and forth here. You can, again, you might scooch back a little bit to lift up the knee and sway it forward and back. But if that is not available to you, tuck that toe behind you a little bit and maybe just lift and lower the heel, bringing your attention and awareness to that knee. Notice what this is like. Notice the range. And you may feel hamstring, quadriceps doing some work here. Maybe the core a little bit as well. Smooth movements. And then we'll pause and we'll put that foot back down on the earth, or we'll bring it forward if it was slightly behind us. Taking a breath. We'll switch to the other side. And these movements don't have to be tied to breath, but they could be, right? You can take that inhale, extend, and exhale, return. Slowing things down, evening things out. Remembering that the other option is to keep those toes behind you and maybe just lifting and lowering that heel a little bit. You'll feel some sensation in the thigh. that knee is bent. And we might take one more out and back with the knee, and then put that foot down next to its neighbor. Take a breath and check in with sensations. Probably sensing things from the feet up through the knees into the thighs, perhaps. And we're going to move to the thighs, hips and thighs. So I'm coming a little bit more forward now, sitting bones still very firmly on the chair. Just working with I'm going to start with my left thigh here, just so you can see. I'm going to open it out and bring it back. That's all. Simple. Now, your hip is a ball and socket joint, so we have a lot more capacity there, right? We might be able to move it, but sitting in a chair does make it difficult. So we have some choices. We can just stay here, open and close. Feet are together and you can open and close that way, or you can take the feet a little wider and open and close. Careful with the knee. Or you can pick up that knee, thigh, and make circles here. That's another option. Or I'm going to turn to my right so that my left hip is pretty much on the edge of the chair and I can make circles here. Decide where you want to be. Once you've decided, don't forget that we need to make circles in both directions. So figure out what's best for you. We have several options here. And that's what I like about this sequence as well. So many options. Slow it down. Smooth it out. And then we'll bring that leg back down. Come back to center. Check in with those sensations now. For me, the left hip has done a lot of work. Right hip just sitting there pretty. So I'm going to start just a simple open and close. With the option to lift it up and use your hands to make circles. Making sure we go in both directions, or turning, in this case I'm turning to the left to move my right hip a little bit more. I have more space here. And whichever direction you're going, make sure that we even it out and make circles in both directions. Then we'll bring that foot back down, come back to center. Check in with how that feels. Take a breath. Notice how the nervous system feels. Let's take a slightly wider stance. We're going to make some circles with the upper body. Working with the connections between the hip, the pelvis and the thighs, and between the upper body and lower body. So these circles don't have to be big, but you want them to be smooth, and you want to make sure you go in both directions. And I'm noticing the weight shifting from one sitting bone to the other, but both sitting bones are firmly on this chair. You want to switch directions again, we've got about 20 seconds to go. Evening things out. And then come to stillness. So really from the waist down, noticing how the energy in that part of the body is starting to move a little differently now. Maybe not as stuck. Okay, we'll move to the wrists now. Let's keep our hands open. And we're going to start to make circles with the wrists, with our fingers open. Now you can keep your elbows in close to your rib cage. Or you might decide that I'm feeling strong today, I want my arms forward. This is a lot more work for the arms. But we're just really focused on the movement of the wrists, and make sure that you go in the other direction as well. And there's so much we can do with these wrists. As you're doing that, maybe move the fingers too, just to make sure that the fingers get a little attention. What might be interesting to do now is to make a soft fist. So let's tuck our thumbs and gently curve the fingers over and see what it's like to make these same circles with a soft fist. And you know, there's no rules here. We can do whatever we want. We're kind of having fun here. Waking up the wrists, make sure we go in both directions. We can do them low, or we can take them up high. And then let's open the fingers again. See what it feels like. Maybe like we're making circles in water here, going in both directions. So maybe it's a little bit more movement than the wrist, but it's a lot more fun. And then let those hands rest in your lap. Take a breath. So sensations, fingers, palms, wrists, maybe forearms into elbows. And we're going to get to the elbows. So let's bring our palms up and forward, and we'll just bring fingertips to shoulders. The elbows are another hinge, like the knee. So we're just going to let them go open and close here. You could tie it to the breath, smooth and even inhale, opening. Let the exhale bring the fingers back. And we can work both arms at the same time, which is good. Or we could alternate arms, which is something interesting for the brain to think about. Now these elbows can be in close to your rib cage. You could open out to the side. I kind of want to do both together again, so I'm going to do that. You could reach the arms overhead. So there's a lot of choices here with these elbows. Just depends on how you feel. And then we'll let those hands rest down in the lap. Take a breath, notice sensation. We're going to move to the shoulders now. And again, we've done a little bit of shoulders, but we'll really focus on shoulders now. I'm going to bring my fingertips to my shoulders. And we can do some small circles with the elbows. Small circles. Small circles to the outside. And then go the other way. Small circles in the other direction. Maybe we want to do one at a time, like we're swimming forward. Notice how the rib cage gets into this a little bit too, some twisting of the vertebrae. So bringing some motion into those joints along the spine as well. And then maybe go backwards. We could do a little open and close. Feel those shoulder blades moving on the back. And then let's release those hands back down to the lap. Make sure you're on the edge of the chair, feet are firm. Yeah. And we will, let's move to the head and neck. So imagine there's a flashlight on your head pointing towards the ceiling. And we're going to make some real tiny searchlight circles, So I'm not doing a big motion with my head and neck, but it's a small, smooth motion. And then make sure that it goes in the other direction. And then pause here and come back to stillness. Okay, let's come back to the upper body here with our palms out as if we're holding, I don't know, a tray of exciting desserts. That works. And there's no way to do this part wrong, so just kind of have fun with it. But imagine that you're offering these desserts and then you're spinning them behind you and then forward, and you know, one arm can go one way at a time, but we've got these desserts on the platter and we don't want them to drop. So just see what that feels like. Getting into all of those joints in the upper body, head, neck, elbows, wrists, shoulders. Just kind of have fun with it. Can do one hand at a time, one arm in front, one arm behind, you know, and chances are good my desserts have already fallen, but it's kind of fun to play this way. Imagine you're in Cirque du Soleil or something. And then pause here, wherever here is. Find your tray of dessert and let the hands rest in your lap. Take a breath. Notice how that feels. Okay. We're going to come into the eyes now. There are muscles that work in the eyes, so we want to make sure we move those as well. Let's take our thumbs out in front of us, about an arm's distance length. And we're going to make some lazy figure eights here, or infinity signs. So I'm going to keep my head and nose straight ahead, pointed towards my thumbs. And I'm going to take my, in this case, I'm taking my left thumb up and around, making a circle. I'm tracking it with my eyes, and then it's going to come back and meet my right thumb. And then I do the same thing with the other thumb. Following with my eyes, my head is staying in the same place. Eyes are lifting, following that thumb in that circle. It meets its neighbor, I follow the other thumb. I'm making a figure eight with my eyes. One more like that. And if you need to blink, blink. Okay, now pause at the center. We're going to let the circles go in the other direction. So my left thumb's going to go down and then up and around to make the circle. I'm following it with my eyes, and then right thumb goes down. Follow it with your eyes. Your elbows can be soft. Let's finish that figure eight. Let's pause here. Let's rub those palms together. Friction, 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 creating some heat. And then we'll cup those palms over the eyes. Let that heat come into the eyes. And let's do that again. Friction, 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 creating that heat, creating that heat. And then we'll cup those palms over the eyes. Eyes can be open or closed, whatever feels better for you. And we'll do it one last time. Friction, friction, friction. Palms over the eyes. And then release those hands back down to your lap. Take a circle with those shoulders. Okay, one last part of the sequence while we're seated here. And I'm calling this balance the rainbow. So our arms are wide, and imagine we've got a rainbow between them. Interesting. This is going to give us the opportunity to stretch to the side. So sitting up tall here, as we exhale, we're going to lean in one direction. Balance that rainbow. Return on your inhale and exhale other way. So like a giant slinky rainbow over your head. You can look down at the bottom hand, or if your neck allows, you might look up at the top hand. Do one more in each direction. Pause in the center. Bring that rainbow together between your palms. And stack those palms at heart center, bringing all that good light in. Tuck your chin, pause here. Notice how you feel. And if this is all the practice that you need today, you can turn off the video and go about your day. Stay well, my friends. If you're ready for the standing portion, it will begin next. This is the standing portion of our joint rotation series, and we still can use the chair to help us with balance. You can put it in front of you, or probably better to your side. You can also use the wall as a support as well. But from standing, we're going to do that lift and lower of the heels to get started. We'll lift both heels together and then let them drop. You can tie this to the breath if you like. Let's do 2 more. And then pause. And you may notice that the vibrations of that heel drop are felt a lot more through the body, right? It goes up past the waist, perhaps even into the shoulders and the head. It's an interesting practice, But then we're going to move to feet and ankles. As we did before, we're going to extend the leg in front of us. My knee is soft and bent, and we're just going to turn the foot at the ankle. Slow movements, working within your acceptable range. And whatever direction you're going, be sure to even it out. We spend about a minute on each joint, so take your time. You know, if you've done so many in one direction, so many in the other, and we're still going, well, even it out again. Now, if you don't need to use the chair for support, you might bring hands to hips, or you can just let them rest alongside your body. It's a good way to practice balance. Notice what's happening with that core. And then we'll put that foot back down. Take a moment to notice sensations and the differences between the sides. And then we'll go to the other side. We know that the option is to keep the toes on the floor and circle the ankle. That's another option we can use when we're standing. Slowing down, evening out the breath, evening out the movement. And then we'll put this foot back on the floor. Pause and notice how that feels. Notice where you feel sensations and how it might be different, right? You might get a little bit more in the hips because we're standing now. Moving to the knees. Again, that knee is just a front and a back. Just working with a hinge here. Turn to the side so you can see a little better. Doesn't have to be super high or super straight, right? We're just exploring what's here today, whether you're working in the morning or the evening. Hands can be at hips, hands can be alongside the body, hands can be resting on a chair to support you. And then we'll pause and we'll put that foot back down. Maybe take a little circle here, shake out your standing leg. We'll make our way to the other side. Same thing, just the knee extends and bends. Extension, contraction. You might be noticing sensations in the quadriceps or the hamstring. Can we make the movement smoother? let's finish off this side. Put that foot down, shake out the standing leg, maybe do a little wiggling. Moving to our hips now. In this case, standing to the side of the chair is a great idea, or with a hand on the wall. We can pick up that knee and just begin to make those nice circles. Slow, smooth circles. And know that these circles are only as big as you need them to be. You're exploring what's available to you today. Let's make sure we go in both directions. And then pause and put that foot down. Great time to check in with differences between the sides, right? My left leg, man, from my foot all the way up into the hip and waist. I feel a lot of sensation. So in order to even that out, we switch sides. So now my weight is in my left leg. I'm going to make those circles with my right hip. My knee's bent. I'm just making slow circles here. And then let's make some circles in the other direction. We'll finish that off. Put the foot down. Check in. So just be still. Take a slow and even breath. And then let's come into those hips a little bit more. So I have a slightly wider stance, slightly wider than my hips. I'm just going to make some little lazy figure eights with my hips. Letting one hip come forward, out, and back, and the other. And then to get my brain into it as well, I'm going to go the other way. So back it up. We're going to go back first. This is where it's always like, huh? But then you figure it out. And then come back to stillness in the center. Find your mountain pose, stand still, and notice sensations in the body from the hips all the way down. Down to the floor. So moving to the top of the body now, the upper half. Let's start with our wrists. Making those circles. Gentle circles. Arms can be right next to your body. Arms are open. Hands are open. Hands are open. Arms are next to the body. Go in both directions. Maybe wiggle your fingers as well, because that'll get those fingers moving. Lubricating all of those joints. And then you might decide, hey, I want to take my arms up a little. Make sure you're going in both directions. Take a few circles one way, a few circles the other. And then what happens if we tuck that thumb in to a real soft fist? Thumb in, 4 fingers on top. Little different sensation in the wrist. And again, I'm just having fun with it because we can. It's yoga. But decide where you want to make your circles, your wrist circles. You know, if your arms are tired, do it down here. If your arms have a lot of extra energy, maybe you do it up here. And then we'll pause. Release those hands. Let the wrists open. Check in with the arms, the hands, the wrists. And we'll move to the elbows. Bringing fingertips to the shoulders and then extending. Working with that hinge that is the elbow. But because they're attached to the shoulders, we can still use those hinges and maybe go out wider. Or bring them real close into the body. We've got all of these choices. So experiment with that. Or you might decide to do one at a time. Again, we engage the brain a little bit more when we do this, making those connections between the hemispheres. Always good. And then let's release those arms. Take a circle with the shoulders. We're going to move into those shoulders just a little bit more here. We can come back to these fingertips on shoulders and swim forward with the elbows. And you notice we're getting a little twisting action in the spine, which is a good thing. You might decide, hey, I've got a little more space now that I'm not sitting down. I want to go a little longer with my arms. That's fine. Just keep those shoulders safe and healthy. And then we'll take them backwards. Could be with fingertips on shoulders. Could be wider, longer. Again, noticing that twist that's happening in the spine. Do a couple more. And then we'll just pause and come back to stillness. Come back to stillness. Notice how all of that feels. Think about that flashlight on the ceiling, the flashlight that's connected to your head, and we'll make some small circles on the ceiling. So you notice I'm not dropping my head forward or back, but this light is just staying right on the ceiling. Make sure you go in the other direction. So really what we're doing is we're balancing the skull on top of that spine, right? It's just kind of moving all around the spine. And then come back to stillness in the center. Come back to stillness in the center. Let's come back to our balancing dessert trays, huh? What happens as we do this, we might be able to get into the hips and the knees a little bit more as well. You might go one way or the other because we're standing now. See what that feels like. Soften the knees a bit as you come into these poses. Offer dessert and then take it away behind you. Having fun with that. Let's do two more. Whoops, I think I just dropped all of my desserts. And then let's release those arms down. Take a circle or two with those shoulders. We'll do a few of those circles with the eyes now. Same thing, thumbs out in front of us. Keep your eyes, nose focused forward. I'll look straight at the screen. And we're going to make those infinity figures, lazy figure eights. I'm taking my thumb up and making a circle, tracking it with my eyes. Now this circle can be as big or as small as I like. And then the other thumb goes up and around and down and then meets its neighbor. So there are muscles in the eyes and we're using those muscles right now to track that thumb. Let's make the circle go down now, reversing our figure eight. And then pause, release those hands to your lap. Let's add a little heat, friction, 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 warm up those eyes. And then cup the palms over the eyes and notice how that feels. We'll do it 2 more times. Friction, friction, friction between the palms. You can feel that heat building up. And then when it gets nice and warm, cup the palms over the eyes. Eyes can be opened or closed, whatever you prefer. Try it both ways, see what you like. And then do it 1 more time. And release those hands back down. Okay, we're going to close with our rainbow, our balancing rainbow. And in this case, we're going to take a slightly wider stance. You can keep that chair in front of you if you like to hold on to. You can keep one hand on the chair and keep the rainbow in one hand. That's up to you. Just be sure to switch out. But we come to that rainbow. I've got the rainbow balanced between my hands. Pretty cool, huh? Take an inhale here. As we exhale, I'm going to lean over to one side. So this is a side body stretch. I'm balancing my rainbow. I can look down. I can look up. And then the inhale is going to bring me back up. Exhale other way. So decide where your neck wants to be. And come up. And now we can do something with the legs as well. So as I lean in this direction, the opposite leg is going to bend. So I'm leaning to the right, my left leg's bending. And then I come back up on the inhale. Exhaling, lean left, right leg bends. And return. Decide where you want to look. Smooth movement. Even out your sides. Come back to center. Bring that rainbow together between your palms and into heart center. Tuck your chin and thank yourself for taking time out of your busy day to practice yoga. This concludes our practice. If you'd like to take your seat and just spend a few minutes sitting with all these wonderful feelings, that's fine. Thank you so much for joining me. Stay well, my friends. I'll see you again soon.